you've really shown yourself to be there for whoever needs it, in every subject, every place, everywhere, and the sheer volume, but the sheer value, and it's just not a talking head for the sake of being in the mix. And I just really appreciate what you've been doing, and it's different than what you've been doing. It's really palpably just like rock solid in there. So thank you. So this is my attempt to follow your lead and do as much. This podcast has exploded, and it's been phenomenal. And pivoting these last couple of weeks to specifically what people are dealing with, what the people who listen, the leaders, and so my podcast is not so much a leadership podcast, because there's about 35,000 of those.
Yes.
Mine is how do you deal with being a person in your 40s and 50s and adult children and
perfect,
and elderly parents and a company and all this stuff. And now these people are focused on this, so I'm taking it from that angle.
Okay, go
so
ahead.
Leadership is a component, but being a fucking human is being
is a
component, right? All of it.
I am so glad that you're bringing this up. Perfect.
So that's my dream is to be Oprah, but I don't make money being Oprah. I make money being Oprah to the same type of people you work with, which are executives and leaders and that kind of stuff. So I kind of walk that line.
Yes.
So this is good. So cool. So I'm going to hit record. What I'll do is I'm
listen. One thing I want you to know. I've told my background so many times in interviews. I'm bored of talking about my background. So I'm letting anyone who's interviewing me now say, if you want to give my background in 1 minute or less, you can.
I got you.
You got me, right? I'm just bored of talking about me.
I got you.
All right, thank you.
So if you're listening to this podcast, it's in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. If you're listening to it in 2022, you'll remember. If you're listening to it in April 2020, because I'm going to produce this right away, then you're right in the thick of it with all of us. And what I've been noticing in the thick of it is that there's some people who are stepping up and listening to what people need. There's people stepping up in relationship. There's people stepping up in leadership, in health, in a process, in every direction. And I've been paying attention to who's really providing value at this time. And my next guest is someone I've been friends with for several years, admired. I consider him a mentor. I listen to what he has to say and model myself after a lot of what he does. His name is Satyen Raja, and together with his incredibly beautiful wife, Suzanne, they created this transformational school, this academy called Warrior Sage, which marries ancient wisdom, martial arts, spirituality with practical balls to the wall business sense. And he's, for over 100,000 students all over the world. He works with CEOs and business leaders, and really one of the few people I've seen be able to marry all this stuff together. And Satyen has been all over LinkedIn and Facebook and just producing so much good content that I begged him to come onto the podcast just to talk about whatever it is we need to talk about that's going to be valuable to you. So Satyen, thank you for being here.
Oh, Mark, I really value who you are, your heart, and I really love you. I think you're an awesome human and being, and also making huge contribution to people's lives. And however we can serve whatever's going on right now, let's go for it.
Cool. So tell me, what are you noticing? Because you again, I could do a whole podcast with you, a series of podcasts on relationship, on leadership, on being a strong man, on like we could just run the gamut. What are you seeing that's going on in the world in general 3 to 4 weeks into this pandemic, in the business world and in the world of humanity, that we need?
Well, there's two things I'm seeing going on. The way I look at things is that this is a dualistic universe, a dualistic reality. Where there's good, there's bad. Where there's bad, there's good. And so what I'm seeing, first of all, is malevolent, diabolical, greed, vulturism. All these things are being magnified right now on many levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, etheric, whole plane level. All the forces, intentions that are aiming to grab and use and manipulate, they're at the forefront right now to make best use of this to line their own pockets or their own megalomaniac intentions. So there's all of that going on, and I want to acknowledge that. I don't want to honor it, I want to acknowledge that. And I also see it as a possibility for us to see our own shadow in that, to see where am I similar in my greed, in my desire, in my manipulation. We might not be able to topple those forces, but we can transform it within ourselves. So that's number one. But equal to that, and probably even bigger and better and more powerful, is there's the benevolence, the humanitarianism, the love, the community connections, people reaching out to each other through internet, through video Zooming, video Skype calls, these type of things, and connecting deeper than they ever did, even face to face, body to body. So I'm feeling in my bones, I'm feeling in the communities and the society that we are coming together. There's a great equalizing. The greatest billionaire to the ordinary person, we're all in our homes.
Right.
And what's coming to the surface, and this is the most crucial part I'll start with. The most important thing I'm feeling and seeing is that the reestablishment of genuine contact, care, compassion, conscientiousness, seeing you as my brother, my sister, my family, my cousin, my aunt, seeing you as part of my human family, that swelling is happening in the heart, and it's tangible, and it's with my neighbors. It's beyond any religions, philosophies. We are reestablishing and growing our humanity for each other, and that to me is not exciting. It's what's called upon, necessary for us to move beyond to what's next.
I find it similar to right after 9/11. The couple of days after 9/11 were so exquisite in our connection, in the peace. The collective fear, I don't think took hold yet, and there was something going on during 9/11, right after those couple of days. The weather was ridiculously incredible. Like everything was really a different timber, and I feel the same thing here. So I get distracted by what you started off with the malevolence and the greed and the power, and it seems to be louder. But then when you really look, I'm watching people step up in so many ways and do so many beautiful things that it just breaks my heart open. So I want to take us on a hero's journey here.
Yes.
Let's start with the shadow that you just talked about, because I think that's a really hard thing for people to work with. In fact, I'm following one of your posts right now because I think it's one of those things that people don't like to look at, is when you see something that you despise, when you see something that you hate in the world, how can you actually look at that inside yourself, inside your own shadow, so that you can somehow level the playing field? Because what you said was very eloquent, but I don't know that a lot of people actually even allow that to be part of their existence.
Well, the way I experience it, with using a simple model, 3 stages of growth within our being. Simple model. First stage, very me-centric. I, me, my gain, my wishes, my desires, my wants, perhaps my immediate family and circle. We need this. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to make sure we're self-resourceful, that we have plenty and we're in abundance for ourselves. This is not only valid, it's noble. But when our hearts are closed, when it turns into a self-servingness that is closed off to otherness and is not taking into account my relationship to everyone and ultimately the all, then what happens is there's a diminishing return to our soul. We might gain more benefit, we might gain more external success, we might gain more financial success going for and aiming to improve just our own condition, which is valid. But after a while, there'll be a point where that is no longer nourishing to the soul. There'll be a discontentment that will start to set in. There'll be a boredoms. And what happens is, this is a holy moment. And in those moments, rather than going for distractions to fill that gaping hole within of lack of fulfillment, distractions of movies, TV, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever the heck, all right? Whatever the 1,000,001 distractions. It's really a very fertile time right now to say, maybe I'm ready to go to not just me-centric, but what about we-centric? And so many of us are moving towards we-centric consciousness, win-win consciousness. Now, we in our worlds here, we've been used to this concept of win-win for many years. But for most of the world, that's brand new, believe it or not, that we can actually have win-win, all of us. And now that takes our heart to expand. It cannot be, how can I say, it cannot be instituted. It has to be something that we feel from our discontentment. I'm no longer fulfilled in the soul. The only way to fulfill the soul is through deeper embrace of otherness, deeper care for otherness, deeper compassion that is active and real and that has teeth and feet in the ground. Love in action, whether through generosity of your time, generosity of your knowledge, generosity of your money, generosity of your two hands in the dirt, helping someone dig something. All forms of generosity and care is the new billionaire, in my opinion. Now,
I'm terrified. My business is about to crash. I have to fire employees. I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm in my lizard brain because I'm just freaked out.
Okay.
How do I get to where you're talking?
Okay, I'm going to make the bridge, but I want to take to one more degree. There's me-centric, we, and then to me, there's ultimately where we're moving towards as a complete whole, as a world family, is Gaia-centric consciousness. Meaning that we feel ourselves, we know ourselves, we feel intrinsically not only connected, but that we are part of this earth. Now, these are very lofty concepts, very high ideal concepts, and some would say privileged concepts for those who have. But how do we bring it down when the reptilian mind kicks in? I got my kids to feed, I got my wife to feed, I got my business to take care of. How do we do that? You have to make a commitment that you're not going to live the way you used to. You have to make a commitment that the great freaking shakeup that's happening in our security, in our stability is being shaken up. You got to address that shaking, but you cannot use, you got to make a commitment that you will not use the same psychological models and the same models to reestablish the old pattern of security. Einstein has said this, we've heard this quote 1,000 ways. You can't change the problem at the level of consciousness the problem was generated. So the only true answer is to make a dedication to the growing of one's Gaia-centric illumination and consciousness, which means start learning how to love your neighbor as yourself. Then start learning how to love your whole town as your very family. And then start learning to love your whole province and state as your family. And then keep going until you hit an edge and hit a barrier where it's like, this is too lofty. And then play that edge and keep expanding. And then make a dedication that I'm taking a new path where I will have this depth of being. And just by even declaring that, I promise you, there will be a forces of benevolence that'll come to support this higher intention and give you the freedom and the confidence and the courage to let go of the previous paradigms, which are really outdated.
It's showing itself, and again, in all the literature, as far as what to do now in your business, is now is the time to give to your customers. Now is the time to give to your clients. Now is the time to create relationship. Now is not the time to take, harvest, and so people can understand that in business terms, right?
It's the ultimate sharing is relationship. It's the ultimate wealth right now. It's the ultimate form of wealth is relationship. All right? I like to take people to the worst case scenario. What if it all breaks down? What if our businesses all go to hell? We got to feel it. What if forget our business, what if half the businesses fail? Many small businesses are going to go under. This is like brass tacks. This is like serious. Rather than stay in a new agey, pumped up, rose-colored, illusionary sort of state, thinking, oh, everything's going to be fine and go back. No. Not only will everything not go back to normal, how about we choose and we dedicate ourselves to not make everything go back to normal? What if the normalness has been thrown out the window for us to evolve? We're going to embrace it. Look, we're going from old models of energy consumption to new models. We have to. The same has to be upgraded in our psychology and in our relationships. If you fail, but you won't die. The government is not going to save us. Don't look for them. UFOs, I don't believe, are going to save us. I don't believe some mystical forces are going to save us. I think only we can save ourselves. And now, let's get down to practicality. Who are the people, if shit hits the fan, that you would call first to foster your allyships, to foster your alliances and allegiances? I can think of a few people, and there's a lot of people I wouldn't call. But the ones I would call, what if I start calling them today? And start, hey, you know what? I want you to know that if things fell apart, I would want no one else, and this is why I spoke to my contractor yesterday, who's been working at my house for 20 years. Deep trust, he barely gives me bills. He comes, fixes things. I don't even get a bill. I just send him money here and there. And he's done everything with impeccability. Very different cultures we come from. He's very Canadian, very old school, very old townish. I'm an Indian. I'm a eccentric entrepreneur, this and this. But I said to him, I go, brother, if shit hits the fan, I want us to align our families, work together, have food together, find ways to serve. He goes, of course. He goes, there's very few people I would want to do that. It would be with you. I think that's the ground floor communications we need to make. That's the real communications we need to have now, so that we know our sturdiness, our solidity is not based on external factors, but the relationships in my immediate circle. Galvanize those, love those, nourish those, bring those people in, share food with them, leave food at their doorstep. Come back to the humanness of real relating and trust.
One of my friends, we were just on a Zoom call the other day, a colleague, and she's a financial advisor. And what she did was she drove around town with bottles of wine and rolls of toilet paper. And she put a roll of toilet paper on a bottle of wine and went around to all her prospects, all her customers, all her people. And on one hand, it's silly, but it's funny, it's practical, it's thinking of someone, and for me, it just lit me up.
Right?
That she thought of all of that. And, like my partner just got a gift in the mail from his financial advisor. And I was like, okay, great. What is it going to be, a calendar of or something like that? And my partner is very specific about what he likes, what he wants. It was a book of 50 hikes within 50 miles of where we live. Like, that's what we do, right? And I was like, now that's taking an extra moment thinking and doing something like that. So let's go back to what you're talking about, using this shakeup as an opportunity. I talk about midlife the same way I talk about the coronavirus, because we hit a wall. What was working no longer works. We made the money, we have the career, we have the success, and all of a sudden we're just fucking not happy. Why? Right? Now, this is the hard part. Do we start covering it up with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, a new partner, a new this, or do we actually peel the layers back and see what we need? And everything that's needed now in the coronavirus time, everything that's needed in your business and your personal life and everything, is what's needed in midlife, which is taking stock, taking an inventory, solidifying your resources, which is your relationships, as you were talking about. And now, what do I want to create as the next chapter?
Exactly. I love what you just shared on all of that, whole spectrum of that. You shared about your friend who's gone around and made these very specific gifts that are opportune and pertinent to this very moment and dialed into you, not generalized, but thoughtful, caring of yourself. I started making calls of all of my past, and here's some practical tips. I made calls to all my past clients I've had. I've been doing like 5-10 calls in between my coaching calls, just reach outs, just how are you doing? I just want you to know I'm sharing my love with you. I'm giving you a big embrace from over here. If you wish to share back to me and let me know what you're experiencing, what you're going through, if you need a shoulder to lean on or to chat with, I have no business solicitation going on, none of it. I just want to let you know that there's care and love coming your way. Now, what's happened is I've got many phone calls come back. Thank you. How thoughtful of you. How caring of you. And what's interesting is I've had prospective calls, high ticket prospective calls, come out from all other places that didn't seem directly related to my outgoing calls, but are coming back from the universe. I believe if we invest in conscientious love of others in a direct, formalized, executed way that's dialed into each person from the quality and joy of that connection, not a generalized connection, this unique connection. And we're feeling that individual as we're giving our gift and how they would bloom, how they would be served. We might not get the return back from that group that we're expressing to, that joy and love, but the universe loves when you invest in love. And when you invest in love and true power, it wishes to give you a huge ROI. It wants to. But it might not come through directly. It'll all come through tangential ways. So this is what we got to get our heads around, especially those of us who are in business, that our direct marketing, reach out, connection efforts will not necessarily directly, they might come from the crucible of all the people you know. It'll come from other realms, other directions. It'll come from referrals. It'll come from you sharing, wow, Satyan, I saw you on video and what you're offering, and now people hear what I'm up to. It's the genuine expression of care in action. That's the warriorship that's needed now. And the courage is to wrap up whatever the past was, put it in your hand like a piece of paper, blow it to the sky, and say thank you for the past, and I am ready for what's new.
So I'm so happy to be talking to you about this, because I feel sometimes I'm speaking into the wind. In the Twitterverse, in out there in the world, there's the hustle and grind, hyper masculine guys, who, like, if you're not working out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and if you're not working at 2 o'clock in the morning, people are going to lose, are going to steal your lunch, and they're just like this hyper. The only way I can say is the hyper masculine, success oriented, empty paper tigers, right? And then when I watch what you do and what you represent, it's also just beautifully masculine, right? Very strong. It's about the physical, it's about the mental, it's about the spiritual, it's about all that stuff. But there's a gap. And what I'm hoping is that there's a shift towards what you're talking about, and that people can actually see the difference. Because you and I are walking into glass buildings with executives,
Yeah.
We're sitting behind desks, with ties and things like that, and we're teaching concepts that would be thought of as the feminine side, the Californian side, or the Vancouver side in your case, right? But we're able to show that actually, no, this is the way to the next levels of success, and to actually experience that success.
Well, let's take a look at some real examples. Look at a Richard Branson. When you see him, I don't think of a person stressed out of his mind. I think of a guy laying in a hammock, drinking cocktails, and directing hundreds of companies with a smile, with a little phone in his hand, and saying, try this, do that, with a little direction. How do you build that? How do you have that type of Branson type consciousness? Well, there's a simple triad of when these are activated, I feel will really help people who are in that hyper masculine energy. Because I used to be. And I came up through a very strong, as you said, hyper masculine intentionality. Luckily, very blessed, I had feminine teachers to help me learn about new ways. I had guides and experiences that I had with Mother Nature, shamanic experiences. I had very profound feminine teachers who helped me get a whole other spectrum to fill me out as an individual. And and here's the triad. Number one, 100% in, 99% is a slow drip poison. So we still need the 100% commitment to an intentionality. 99% or less is a slow drip poison. It'll kill you.
It's so funny because 100% is easy, 99% is a bitch.
Right? But here's the difference. 100% in does not mean going to your hyper masculine, grit your teeth, and does not mean crush it. Think about the term I crushed it. Anytime you crush anything, you'll be crushed yourself. Eventually. Karma is a bitch, and she loves to teach you. She's a great master teacher. Okay? So now, how do we balance that 100% in? And all right, well, what you do is the next metaphysical principle here, it's ancient, is lower importance. On the very thing you're putting 100% in. Lower the psychological, emotional, pent-upness, attachment, as Buddha would say. Relax your attachment to this thing. I like to use the term lower the importance. So you know how there's bass, treble, mid-range on these stereos? So if you take a look at 3 dials, one is turn the dial up on 100% in. If you're anything less, on whatever your goal, desire, intention, business, family life, health life. But then one of the other dials, you have to psychologically slow right down and, I'm going to make this way less important. A lot of people don't do that. They say, let's go crush it, put everything into it and don't back down.
But if my self-worth and my self-image is attached to the success or failure of a particular endeavor, it's really hard to turn down that volume.
And that is the psychological spiritual practice. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to work on it. But here's the thing that I've discovered. The miracle of lowering the importance is it kicks in a metaphysical principle. And the metaphysical principle that it kicks in, it allows a higher intention, your higher mind, your divine consciousness to now draw upon you, call upon the forces that might seem indirectly serving the very meta intention you have, but it's going to come from somewhere else. You might have non-linear. Let me give an example. I had an intention to grow one of my academies, Accelerated Evolution Academy, and to increase 100 new students per year. And we did all the marketing, we put all this stuff in place, and then I said, okay, let's lower the importance. And I practiced this with my whole team. We just lowered the importance, we came to breath, we released importance around it, but we still did 100% in. Now the third part of this triad is 100% impeccability, which means do everything the first time with great quality. So no one can come back, you can't come back and say, this part was a little shoddy or this part was a little weak. Cross the T's, dot the I's, just be impeccable with follow through. No, the lowering importance is the psychological magic here. When we did that, within like 2 weeks, I had a reach out from a wonderful facilitator who's got an incredible training organization, Jaya and Ian it's a sexuality training program that they train coaches. And she, within a matter of a couple of weeks, we registered 100 of her students into our training. She wanted them to be all upgraded with the methodology. And I in 100 years, I would have thought that I would have to do multiple things in marketing to make that happen. So a non-linear jump created the very goal we wanted by lowering importance. It came tangentially, not through my immediate conscious mind. And I want to share that this principle not only is working for me, it's working for every CEO and the companies I'm coaching, which are, some of them are blowing up and becoming billion-dollar companies. Why is this happening? This secret principle that's been around forever has to be combined with our masculine. And this is the space of spirit. This is the space of fulfillment in the now is the lowered importance. The looking, the feeling, the grace of what we have here. When we want what we already have, we'll have more of what we want. We have to want what we already have and look, what do I already have? Take stock of that now. That will lower the importance. And when you do this, my friends, just watch how this will affect your families, your relationships, your health, and your businesses. I guarantee it, but you got to try it on and you got to risk this leap in consciousness, trusting that not the increase of importance will get my end goal, but the lowering of it. It sounds absolutely paradoxical, but the masters have known this for thousands of years. Give it a try.
Really good sales guys know it too. Needy is creepy, right? Like, when you met, the best time to make a sale is when you've made a sale, when you can play with this, and it's not that important. It was Sadhguru kind of puts it in a really cool way. He talks about the game. It's not bad to play the game all in. If you're playing soccer, when you get on the field, that ball is the most important thing in your life. You have blood, sweat, and tears, and it is good. It is noble to put everything on the line for that ball. The problem is when we walk off the field and we're still thinking about that ball. And I was like, bam. No wonder he's Sadhguru, because he can turn a phrase like nobody can, right?
Exactly.
That was so brilliant. So to my listeners, you have just had a masterclass. I would listen to this a second time. I'm going to listen to it tomorrow because I get to on my elliptical, because Satyen brings just such grounded wisdom and so much experience. Satyen, where can people find you?
My website is warriorsage.com.
warriorsage.com, and I urge you to find him on Facebook also, because the content is just an encyclopedia of how to live life.
We have our Warrior Sage community on Facebook that everyone is invited to come to, and that's where a lot of sharings are expressed there.
I'm gonna put all of this on the show notes so people can just click and find you and learn from you and really take in all the wisdom that you, and really thank you for what you're doing right now in the middle of this. It's really water to my soul. So I appreciate you spending time with me. I'm so grateful, and my heart is just really filled, and I'm grateful. It's beautiful. And to everybody else, I just thank you for your precious time and attention. I love you a ton. Have a great rest of the day. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That was wonderful.
What I'm told my gift is that I can take all of this and walk into a glass building and speak, talk the talk, right? I got my Hugo Boss suit. I got my gold watch. I'm credible, right? But when I get to have someone like you bring what I know is so practical and real and substantive and be able to translate it, it makes my job easier, because I can just I can tell new people, hey, go listen to this podcast, then come talk to them. So thank you. Thank you, brother. All my love and blessings. What do you need any help with anything? You need any support on?